$50 an hour thing. So that wasn't even enough to cover rent. Yeah. And that's kind of just her mentality of working as a team and all this other thing stuff that about it. It's important that just has you written all over it. Isn't that amazing though? And they all communicate with each other.
All right, we're going to go ahead and call the meeting of August 8th to order. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. All right, good evening to all of you. I see some new faces that have joined us since our budget meeting earlier, so welcome this evening. We're going to go ahead and start with roll call.
Benson.
Here.
Brunig.
Here.
Johnson.
Present.
Maibaum.
Present.
Minor.
Here.
Schramm.
Here.
Weber.
Here.
Villanueva.
Present.
Mayor Mosier.
Here.
City Manager Leone.
Here.
City Attorney Denherter.
Here.
All right, under routine business, item number 2 is to approve the minutes of the work session meeting of July 25th, 2022, and the regular meeting of July 25th, 2022. What is your pleasure?
So moved.
Second. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion from the commission on the minutes? Anybody in the public? All those in favor of approving the minutes say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. And anybody abstaining? Minutes passed. Number 3 under routine business is a schedule of bills. What is your pleasure?
Move that we pay the bills. Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion of the bills? Anybody in the public? Roll call.
Minor.
Aye.
Schramm.
Aye.
Weber.
Aye.
Villanueva.
Aye.
Benson.
Here. Or
Brunig. Brunig.
Aye.
Johnson.
Aye.
Maibaum.
Aye.
Mayor Mosier.
Aye. Number 4 under routine business is the city manager's report, where I'll turn it over to City Manager Leone.
Here, no, I mean, I do have a few things for the commission and the public, but I'll keep it brief. On your consent calendar, there is a work session scheduled for the 22nd of this month. I would ask that you go ahead and approve that on consent, although I don't have a topic currently. Just want to leave it there in case something would happen to come up that we would want to discuss. But at this point, I don't see that happening. I'll certainly let you know, by next Monday. But I don't see that happening unless you altogether want to just cancel it for certain. But I don't have a topic, and I feel after the budget and having a number of budget meetings, this was sort of a work session for the month, but just ask that of you. I'd give you guys a heads up for sure.
I'll just interrupt and say that I would be fine canceling it if we want to make that move. You've worked hard on the budget, staff's worked hard on the budget. You're taking some time off, so that sounds reasonable to me.
Is there anybody else on the commission that would like to have a work session on August 22nd, or would you rather we cancel? I am seeing a lot of head nods for go ahead and cancel.
So then I would change and ask that you could pull number 1 from your calendar, Mayor. Thank you. Wanted to acknowledge the Yankton Fire Department as well as EMS and Emergency Management who responded last week to a fire call at the middle school. We welcomed our new chief, and he's getting quite an experience. I know he's at fire practice right now, but I don't remember there being a downtown fire and then a fire at the school here. So very real calls, and I know he's helped out by a lot of great folks, and just appreciate them. Everything's going to be fine. I think they're on track for cleaning up and getting things going for the start of school, but something that could have been very serious. Thanks to the folks we have in the fire department, volunteer fire department. So wanted to bring that forward. Also, wanted to let the commission and public know that the West Side Park, Labyrinth, Sundial, and reflective meditative area plans are being advertised right now. So I have the plans with me this evening. They are online if folks want to take a look at them. If you have technical questions, we can get you the answers to those. Had a nice meeting. Adam and I had a nice meeting this morning with the Prioress, Sister Mary Beth Wenslopp, and we talked through some of the things on signage for the project, and they're very excited, and we're excited too. So just wanted to let you all know that if you want to look at the plans or hear more about the project, that's available to you, and we're certainly happy to walk through that as well. So we're hoping that we can have a recommendation to you for a bid award yet this fall, probably either late September, early October, and then it would really be up to the contractor depending upon the, the conditions of the of weather conditions as to whether or not they move forward with starting that, or my voice is going to go, starting that project before construction season next year if they decide to do part of it in the fall here. So we'll keep you posted on that. I also wanted to let the commission know and the public know, because I've been getting some questions. We're having some work done on the Meridian Bridge. So commissioners, you remember that we had some delamination on the piers on the south side of the Meridian Bridge, and our engineering department has worked on putting together a project to address that. We've had the contractor here last week and some folks here today, and they're recommending that we do a little bit more investigation on that. Maybe a little deeper deterioration than we anticipated. So they're actually going to do, I found this really interesting because I didn't know about this was something that they could do, like an x-ray on the concrete piers to determine, maybe everyone else didn't know that, to determine the level of deterioration there, which I think is pretty interesting. Our city engineers have explained that it's happening on those south piers right below a joint, which is probably not an uncommon place for there to be degradation because of the materials that were put on that bridge for years for de-icing, et cetera. So they're going to look into that a little further. They're fine right now, but we may be looking at more of a replacement than initially. The reason why I want to talk about it tonight in the public and hopefully have the press help communicate this is there's going to be a little, I don't want to say traffic reroute, but we're going to have a little cones around the piers. People will still be able to pass on bikes and walking, but I just want people to realize that there is some spalling there and there's some delamination and work being done there. So I just want people to realize that, but people can still utilize the bridge and trail and access that. So we will keep you posted as we know more about that. I've talked plenty, Mayor, so unless there's questions or comments people have, I'll let you take care of your business.
Are there any questions for the city manager? Other questions? No? All right. We will move on to the time and place in the city agenda for the public to address the commission tonight on something not on the agenda. Seeing no movement from the public, we would be moving on to the consent agenda tonight, but the only item under the consent agenda was to approve the possible work session for August 22nd, with that being the decision of the commission not to have that work session agenda. We will move on to old business. So number one under old business is consideration of memorandum 22-151 regarding the new retail on-off sale wine and cider license for January 1st, 2022 to December 31st, 2022 from South Dakota Publishing LLC, doing business as Muddy Mo's Coffee House, Katie Hunoff, owner, that is located at 233 Broadway Avenue. What is your pleasure?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any commission discussion? Anybody in the public? Roll call.
Schramm.
Aye.
Weber.
Aye.
Villanueva.
Aye.
Benson.
Aye.
Brunig.
Aye.
Johnson.
Aye.
Mybom?
Aye.
Minor?
Aye.
Mayor Mosher?
Aye, motion carries. Under new business, item number 1 is consideration of memorandum 22-152 regarding a bid award for the 2022-2023 annual supply of bulk de-icing salt. This is for Central Salt LLC out of Lyons, Kansas, and that is in the amount of $66.21 per ton. What is your pleasure?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any commission discussion? Anybody else bummed to see this in the commission packet this week, realizing that the reason we need de-icing is because winter is coming? Anybody else besides me? I think it also speaks to exactly what City Manager Leon said this week when we were looking at it. That bid award last year was $61.85 a ton, and this year it's $66.21 a ton. So we're starting to see some of our services and what we're having to pay for things, those dollar amounts going up. And if that doesn't sound like a lot, 'cause you're like, well, $5 a ton, not bad. Whole ton of de-ice. It also said in our commission packet that was $700 a ton that we used last year, so that does add up. So anyways, we do have a motion and a second. No other commission discussion, anybody in the public?
Well, I think
Oh.
the memo states that approximately 700 tons are used on an average year. There's no way we used 700 tons last year, though, right? Or even moving into this year. I mean,
No, he's saying no, but still.
It depends
an average.
upon the chemical, the level of chemical attack Public Works wants to take.
I think I put out 2 scoops, and I didn't even get to use my snow blower, so I'm hoping we didn't use 700 tons.
Don't be jinxing us, Commissioner Mybom, now that you said that. We're gonna need like 900 tons this year or something. Ah. All right. Anybody?
That comment is on record.
All right. Anybody else in the public? Roll call.
Weber?
Aye.
Villanueva?
Aye.
Benson?
Aye.
Brunig?
Aye.
Johnson?
Aye.
Mybom?
Aye.
Minor?
Aye.
Schramm?
Aye.
Mayor Mosher?
Aye, motion carries. Number 2 under new business is consideration of memorandum 22-150 in support of resolution 22-36 regarding the funding of the Huther Family Aquatic Center. And this is to transfer $2 million from the Huther Family Aquatic Center construction funding remaining balance to a committed reserve fund to be utilized for future Huther Family Aquatics Center maintenance, operation, and capital expenditures. What is your pleasure?
So moved.
Second. We do have a motion and a second. Is there any commission discussion?
Yes. So to kind of revisit the discussion we had at the just our previous meeting, I think it's important during the dive-in campaign as well as the Yes for Yankton, we discussed having these, if there is any extra funds, to potentially sunset the opt-out sooner. I realized just from the budget session we just had that it looks like we have approximately 3.5 million extra, and it sounds like we can pretty much use those funds, any or all of those funds, to sunset the bond earlier, if the opt out earlier if we'd like, or we can use it like we're talking about now, putting it into a special fund that is going to be a maintenance fund for the facility, which I don't necessarily think is the wrong thing to do. I just don't know if I feel really good about putting all 2 million in that fund and then not helping to sunset the opt-out sooner. And the reason I bring it up is because during the dive-in campaign and during the Yes for Yankton campaign, we did tell the citizens that if there was extra money, we would help to sunset that bond sooner. I conferred with other dive-in members, and that is what we understood. And like I said at the budget meeting, I don't have a written memorandum of understanding. I don't have it on tape. I don't have video. I know that we've done our due diligence looking back at videos and tapes to see if that's indeed kind of what was understood. I know we're having a hard time finding that. But I do think it's important for me to do what we said we would do. I don't necessarily disagree with putting that money in there. So what I think could be potentially prudent would be to earmark some of those funds. I don't know, Al, how that works, if we put it into an account and earmark it, if we can technically do that, or leave it in the account it's in now. But I realize too that we can't do that until 2025, December, correct? Without paying a penalty. So obviously we do not want to penalize ourselves for trying to pay down this opt-out sooner. That makes no sense. But I do believe that it's important for me especially that we do earmark something, whether it be $1 million or whatever that number is, towards paying down that opt-out sooner. That's where I'm at on this. I don't necessarily feel comfortable leaving it to a future commission to say, yeah, we have a bunch of extra money, let's pay down a debt. But I also think it's important, like I said earlier at the budget session, it's important to be mindful of the money that we brought in that was raised, especially from everyone, but the private citizens that put in their hard-earned money too, to help make this dream a possibility. And so I think it's important that that money is all of the money, but that we're being wise with how we spend it, as well as to maintain it to a level that is required for such a facility. So again, what I'm saying is I do believe that we can split this up somehow, but I do want to earmark some of it for the future opt-out if that is possible.
Amy, would you do me a favor? I'm sure everybody was very much in tune to listening to the budget meeting earlier before this. I'm sure everybody was listening on pins and needles, anxiously listening to the budget meeting. But could you do me a favor for those couple that might have joined us for this meeting to kind of walk those through who may not have heard the budget session? I loved your cake analogy of having cake tonight at our meeting, and kind of just walking folks through what you shared, because they might be confused about the 2 million and the 3.5 that Commissioner Villanueva is talking about.
Yeah, so this is an exciting thing. I think that's something everyone's going to agree upon, that we hit a sweet spot that we rarely hit in the public sector, with things being done on time and under budget, and bids coming in shockingly well. I remember when we opened the bids, Adam mumbled to me, "You're a lucky dog." And that was the first bid that was open, and they were well over $2 million under than what I thought they were going to be, $2 or $3 million. And so I know Stockwell exhaled and we exhaled and we were excited. So I'm saying this is cake. So this is exciting. We never get cake at the city, So now it's your job to decide how we're going to slice up that cake. And how you do that is up to you. We haven't had that happen before, so we put a lot of time and thought into what do we propose. So going back into the meetings from 2017, 18, we recall the then commission and talking with Dive and Yankton about $2 million, and that's where that 2 million number came from, match in respect to whatever was fundraised in the community, as well as then knowing we would also need to have an opt-out. And so you all, or the commission that was seated at the time, made a change actually in an ordinance to allow for a little more flexibility in the 506, which freed up some funds in the general fund to be able to allocate there to the aquatics. So fast forward to when we opened the bids, and then when we constructed, we ended up with more money in that construction account than we needed. So that's a great thing. Going back in time, what if we kept some things that we cut from the project? Possibly, but you can't be a Monday morning quarterback. You can only be a Sunday afternoon quarterback. So we have a construction fund, and we are in the situation where we need to accept the project by September 26th. So shortly, we'll be coming to you with a memo of recommendation to close out that project. So we can spend until September 26th on the aquatics facility. So there are some things that we didn't do that we're going to do here in the next month or two. They're not high dollar amounts necessarily, but I don't know exactly where they'll come in. So I gave the example of some security and technology things that we didn't implement that we are going to, et cetera. So we're going to spend some of those down. We have some small construction projects associated with that with the facility that we're going to complete. We want to, we believe, we understand from your direction that everyone thinks it's a good idea to make sure we take the shortfall between the debt service and what the opt-out is annually and take that out of the account to make sure we pay that annually. Just makes sense not to take that from the general fund, et cetera. So I don't know exactly what that number is, but it's somewhere in the neighborhood of 3.5 million, maybe even a bit north of that, maybe south, somewhere in that. So the 2 million idea of taking 2 million out of that construction account and putting it in a restricted account to be able to spend on maintenance or operations or future capital came from the fact that, okay, we have this we have these additional funds that we didn't use, and we still have some funds to, if the commission so chooses or would like to, pay down the bond early, would still have that option to do with what's left in that account or what's even taken into the operation maintenance and capital if you place money there. So you have that flexibility there. The only thing you can do with what's left in that account is pay off per schedule or pay off as of December 2025 would be your first time you could pay off without penalty. Those are the only two things you can do with the dollars in that account now. So that's why this is before you, and I know you heard this already, but for the public's benefit, you know, we're shocked at what happened to utilities this year, and so that was, you know, something we couldn't anticipate. We are going to do our best to plan for capital expenses, but you know, we won't replace a pump until it goes out, and we hope we have that cash on hand to do if we need to, but we would like to be certain. I'm very uncertain about where we are nationally in our economy. If we have a very tight sales tax year, the things that will be recommended to cut are not going to be public safety and infrastructure. They will be the amenities or things that are more quality of life driven. So I don't want to be put in a position where we can't operate that facility to its full extent. I don't know if I said this in the budget meeting, but I'll share that in talking with other city managers about their pools and the cost of utilities, some went to a 60-day calendar. We're almost a 90-day calendar, something like 82 or 87 days. Some went to a 60-day calendar. There were some that weren't open every weekend, and some of that was due to lifeguard shortages, et cetera. But I don't want to put us in that position. So we saw this as an opportunity of having, when I say staff, some ability to not have to sacrifice any operations, but you can also use that those funds if you take those out of that construction account. Any amount of those could be taken then and put towards paying off that bond early if the commission then should so choose. So that's where we're at. Commissioner Villanueva and I talked today, and you know, I wouldn't recommend committing the future commission to any for certain repayment, early repayment, only because we don't know what's going to happen in the future. He and I disagree on that, and and you all have your own opinion on that, but that's just my opinion. I just don't know what the future is financially. So any amount, if you choose anything to be into that maintenance operation capital reserve, you have flexibility with that. The way I would treat that, so the commission and public would know, is that if there was something other than an emergency that came up at the aquatic center before we spent out of that, I would bring it to you and say, okay, you know, look, we need to replace picnic tables and we don't have the capital flexibility. Can we, here, you know, this is the amount, I'm just using that as an example. We'd like to spend it out of that reserved fund that the commission in 2022 set aside. So I would bring it forward in that way. Likely review it annually too, as we do with that cemetery perpetual care fund, which is far less than this kind of amount. So it wouldn't be just something that we arbitrarily allocate towards different things at the pool. So I can answer questions if people have them that are more technical than that, but that's really the long and short of it. And it is something really exciting that we have the opportunity to talk about because you know, when we talk about where our plans at the summit, we talk about other facilities, Fox Run wouldn't have been nice to have some flexibility there, and that's where we're all struggling to decide what the best thing to do is. So, thank you.
So Amy, just so this is all clear as mud, we think we're going to be, whether it's north, south, east, or west, 3.5 million. I'm just going to use simple math for this example. So let's say comes around, we have 3.5 million. If tonight we earmark 2 million for a reserve fund, and we do get down to where we have that 1.5 million, if I'm understanding what you're saying here tonight, and we get down to that 1.5 million, at that point in December of 2025, that choice at that point will be to pay that debt.
Yes, you can pay off early. You could pay off the bond up to that amount, whatever that amount is, say it's 3.5, so you could pay 2 million plus the 1.5 that's in the restricted, but that's in the construction account. The only thing you could do with that construction account, though, is pay early or pay according to your schedule. So
what I'm saying is that 1.5 would be earmarked because it's sitting there to pay towards the debt or the
yes,
construction.
whether that's
So
early or on schedule, to
Okay.
me, should be up to that seated commission at that time. I don't know why you wouldn't pay it early unless there's some, you know, something changes in the economy, but correct, Mayor.
Okay.
And that's locked in as of like September 26th of this year, whenever we close out the project.
Yes, and that's 2.9, what, we borrowed that at, do you remember, Al?
2.9. 2.91% is what it's
Yeah.
borrowed at, and that is locked in. We
Yeah.
did verify that today, that you can pay down the principal, but that doesn't change the interest rate. It doesn't reopen it up. We're not refinancing. We're just paying off early.
That's good to know, but also, the question was, as of when this project is closed out, let's say it's September 26th.
Yes.
Whatever's left in that fund, it can only go towards paying
Right,
the debt.
right, that's
No
why.
flexibility with it.
Correct.
So if we do
Correct.
nothing and just leave all if we're saying estimating 3.5 million, it will stay there, it will go towards the debt.
Correct. So that's okay, too, if that's what the commission should so choose. But one of you I talked to today, it's hard to wrap our heads around because it is like making a cake. All the liquid ingredients go in, and it's all there. I mean, so I'm just, the proposals hypothetically, it was the 2 million that came from your general fund that you did, I feel, you commission in 2018 said we were going to use towards the aquatic center. You know, that 2 million would still be, we'd still hold true to that commitment. And you'd have the flexibility to do either thing with either pay off early or use it for future capital maintenance, et cetera. But yes, what's left in that construction account, you have to pay back the bond with. It can be early or on schedule.
I'm just trying to get clarity.
I think I've got my head around it now, but yes.
Okay, so if we decide, because I'll tell you what I was thinking of proposing, all right? Because we're talking about cake, and it would be nice to be able to share the cake. This is such a rare experience to be able to be this under budget as we are. It's also such a rare opportunity to pay off an opt-out early, right? I mean, that's not something that is a normal thing to be able to do. So to me, it would be nice to be able to share the cake with the whole community by being able to lessen that load. But I also understand the idea of having a perpetual maintenance fund going forward. So what I was looking to propose was a 1 million, and split the 2 million. I guess the question that I have is, after the closing of this, are we not going to be able to do anything with those funds if we don't make a decision this evening?
Right.
Like
Yes.
if we were to table this right now?
You know, when you can, I mean, we have, it's August 8th, so we have 2 meetings other than tonight's meeting, regular meeting. Do we have 3? Because we have the 26th too, correct. So we'd have to time it on the agenda if you were going to table it before the 26th, you know, so that we're closing out the project. You would be acting on this before you close out the project. Because you had 3 meetings left if you want to, you know, not make a decision tonight and take it, you know, into the future, those 3 meetings. But once the project is closed out, that's when, once the project's accepted, that's what sort of, what's in that account is then in that account. And, you know, so how you slice that up doesn't matter, but you have to do it before then. I don't know why you wouldn't go ahead and make a decision, because the money will be, we won't know a whole lot more on the 26th of September. We won't have probably a final absolute to the penny amount by the 26th. We'll know a little bit more on some of the smaller things, but not wholly. So and it'll be a rough estimate what's left in there yet.
All right, so from my understanding of looking at it, it ends up being about 800 and, what's the total? 814,000, somewhere in that range per year, correct? Is what the opt-out?
884,043 is
884.
is what's,
Okay. All right. So, and we think that we've got about 3.5, right? Is the guesstimate. So could we say we're going to keep half of it or move half of it, and then the other half stays in a fund, and if there aren't maintenance, it could be used to pay down that, and we're looking at 2 years of opt-out service that could be reduced to, you know, the whole community.
Yeah, there's nothing magic about the 2 million other than that's what, you know, that then commission talked about putting towards from the general fund. So you could split it, you know, half and half. I just don't know exactly what half is. You'd have to trust that we're going to go pretty close to where we're at on, you know, towards the middle of September. I'd ask Lisa now, like, okay, where do we think we are? And it won't be exactly half, but yeah, there isn't, again, nothing magical about the 2 million number, other than that's what we initially talked about allocating as the city's match towards aquatics.
I guess I'd like to know if there's anybody else on the commission that would be interested in like the half mark, just, you know, as a good faith. You know, this was an opt-out that was voted on by the community. It's a fantastic quality of life project. We've gotten incredibly fortunate in that it is under budget. It looks like one of those very rare times that we could say, hey, we could actually do both. We could have cake and eat it too, by saying we're gonna have this in this, we're gonna have a perpetual fund, and we're going to be able to pay off 2 years early. I think that, to me, that sounds like a good compromise. If there's anyone else that has the same feeling.
I would be very much interested in compromising. I feel that it's important to live up to what Diven and Yes for Yankton said we would do, or that thought we were going to be able to do, as well as I absolutely see the benefit of having a fund to maintain the facility. Absolutely. And I also wonder too, we do have would there be any interest in hearing from Josh Swados while he's here with, I guess, your take on some of this, Josh?
Yeah, good evening, Josh Swatus, former dive in Yankton. I think it's a testament to that, the project that the citizens pulled off here. This was a huge project, and it was not possible without the entire community rallying around this project. And so it is good to have this kind of problem, right? And I don't think anybody anticipated we would be going through times like we are now. I get it, I understand it, things are more expensive. But I will tell you this, from a citizen's perspective, if you did split the money, or however you come up with a mechanism, I think it would go a long way in credibility for future projects if we did pay down some of that bond. We campaigned on that, and I know we answered questions about that. And it would be a good faith gesture if we did do that. I also understand having money there for the maintenance. Slides, pumps, those are expensive. I get it, I understand it. But when we campaigned for this project and we stood up there in front of those individuals when they asked questions, we had to answer them. And we did that in good faith from Dive in Yankton. And if it wasn't for the city also getting behind us on this project, it wouldn't have happened. And we can look back on that project and pat ourselves on the back because everybody in the community, everybody sitting up here that had a part in it, it was a full team effort. But looking down the road, if you ever want to do projects like this or you ever want to get citizens groups involved, if you have a citizen group out front answering those kind of questions, then you have to back that up at the finish line. If you say you're going to do something like we did in those meetings, then we have to take a look at doing that. And again, I get this is a tough decision, but at the end of the day, we need to respect the wishes of those that made the investments, those kids that invested $5, those penny drives. We made some pretty important promises to the community when we did this project, and I think it would be a good faith gesture for the city to say, yeah, you know what, whatever that dollar amount is, if it's a split down the middle, that would help your credibility in the future commissions, so that when you go after projects like this, you can push them through the finish line like we did with Dive in Yankton. That's my 2 cents worth.
Are we going to just take more? I have some.
I was going to say, we're getting out of
Charlie.
order here, but yeah, I guess we can.
Go ahead, Chair.
Thank you. Charlie Gross, 1510 Burley. I would just say my recollection of the $2 million the city committed to this project was not to set aside in a reserve later, it was for the project. That would be my recollection, and I know I'm getting old and senile, but.
Yep, no, that's exactly right.
Okay, so what you're now doing is saying we're going to take that, we're going to take 2 million, not the city's 2 million, but we're going to take 2 million and set it over here in a reserve. Al knows that I'm opposed to most of the reserves because, and I understand all of you are in a tough situation where we're trying to figure out going forward, how do we pay for things? And yet the Summit's been over there for 30 years, and we've had air conditioning problems, we've had roofing problems, and we found ways to pay for those. And so I'm just saying, I would be very cautious in terms of my response to the public in what I do with this 3.5 million.
Yeah, correct, Charlie. It wasn't out, you were on the commission at that time. It wasn't about, we never in our wildest dreams thought we would have, more funds to deal with than the project than, at anything. We thought we'd be, over budget on the project and we'd be wondering what we were going to do. So it wasn't put forward as that we use that number because there was towards aquatics in general, and it came from general fund, didn't come from an opt-out. It's still public dollars, of course, but so exactly, I'm uncertain about operating some of our facilities in the future. You're right, we've always found a way. It's harder and harder to find a way. It feels every year harder and harder to find a way, and I don't want to, if we don't have to, I'd like to have a little bit of, I think it's a good idea to have a little bit of
Reserve. Peace.
Peace.
Well, and I would just add, aside from being on the city commission, Charlie was one of those commissioners at the time who did raise his hand, so he was on the joint task force between the city commission, Dive and Yankton, who talked about the funding mechanism. So I certainly appreciate his point of view with that in mind as well. So you mentioned we don't have a magic number, and honestly, I don't think that's too much to ask, that we would have a magic number in mind. We've got 3 city commission meetings in between now and the end of September where, maybe we would get some more feedback from the contractor on capital, maintenance, operations, things that we need to be looking out for. Essentially, a harder number that we can point to if we're going to be setting aside funds in a reserve for that purpose. So my 2 cents is, before I would take any action myself, I want that magic number. And I don't care if it's a guesstimate, but what I don't want is, well, 2 million, there's nothing magic about that number. I would want a magic number.
We can get closer by September 26th. We won't get dead on. And yeah, I say that, I don't mean to be flippant when I say it isn't a magic number. I just say that because you have flexibility to put, it can go from 0 to all the remaining balance. That's why I say it that way. I don't mean to be flippant about,
Well, isn't it
it's
smart
pulled out of
too?
the air.
Because right now, the budget document that we're looking at that has the CIP document appended at the end, all we have in there, for instance, is $4,000 every year, until 2025, I guess. That's for new inner tubes.
Yeah.
And then maybe new picnic tables or something.
Correct. We don't expect, of course, we never know, but we don't expect that we're going to have any capital replacement in the next few years. I would hope not, but of course, anything can happen. So, yeah, all we have right now is budgeted is for water slide tube replacement. But, yeah, I don't know. I wouldn't guess Water Technologies will be ready with that capital plan by the 26th. That would shock me. We'll find out more this week. So you might be facing the same question, but we might be able to get closer to the most accurate capital replacement by that time. But I don't want to guarantee that to you because I don't know what their time frame is yet.
And in that case, I'd certainly be willing to go meeting to meeting up until we get a definitive answer from them.
Thoughts from others?
I just want to reiterate that I also am grateful that we're in a good place because when we were advocating for this project, it was beyond our wildest dreams that we would be this far under budget when the bids came in. I mean, we were all worried that it was going to come in above. So it's unique that we're in this position. And I have a lot of respect for where some of the commissioners are tonight and wanting to allocate this tonight, make the decision, how much we're going to put towards spending down the debt and how much we might keep for maintenance. But I really like the idea of flexibility, and staff have put a lot of thought into this, and they're living it every day. We get to come here 2 times a month and weigh in, but they're the ones that have to hunker down and figure out the numbers, and they're telling us it's getting harder, and they're concerned about the potential challenges we're going to face with this project, whether it's maintenance or if we want to add a new slide or whatever, because we did cut a lot of things out of this project as we were planning it, because again, we thought it was going to come in over budget. So I just like the idea of us taking the $2 million out as proposed and then leaving it to a future commission. So when the people sitting in our chairs in 2024 are budgeting for 2025, which is when we can pay down the debt without penalty, they should have the flexibility to make this decision based on the facts then, because we'll know a lot more in 2024 than we know today. And so I just really like the idea of giving that commission the flexibility to then decide, maybe they'll say $1 million, maybe they'll say $1.5 million should go towards paying down the debt, and we don't need as much in maintenance. That will be a decision they're in a better place to make then than we are now. And hearing from staff the challenges they're having, I just feel that is a responsible thing to do. I feel it's putting it in the maintenance fund is still within the spirit of what we were telling the public. It's going to go towards the pool no matter what. It's just a question of what it's going to be used for. Is it going to be used to pay down the debt? And I think based on what we heard tonight, we're definitely going to pay down the debt early. I feel that's pretty certain. It's just a question of how much sooner are we going to pay it down than we originally thought. So that's why I think it's important that we take this out tonight so we have some flexibility, or rather a future commission has some flexibility based on whatever may transpire in the next 2 years.
Quick question about the fund, the restricted fund that we're moving the money into. What if we don't have any sort of weird world events where you suddenly can't get the powder for the sealant in the paint? The world's so strange right now. If things go swimmingly, pun intended, and we're able to fund what we need to do, would a future commission have the option of taking money out of the maintenance fund to put towards the bond?
To put towards the bond? Yes, yeah, you can, just because you take something out, if you take a dollar amount out, that doesn't mean that couldn't be used to pay the bond early. You would need action for that, but you could do that with a portion of it or all of it. So, it would just, only what's left in that balance, you don't have any flexibility. What you leave there will go either to paying off the bond earlier or on the schedule.
So the restricted fund for maintenance has more allowances than just maintenance?
As it's written in the resolutions, it's maintenance, operation, and capital. We didn't write in there in the resolution, or you can pay off the bond early, but
Right.
you can.
Okay.
It doesn't negate that possibility.
Okay.
So it can go towards that as well. And, that can be looked at annually, or it can be looked at, you can look at the whole entire balance, even if it's in different accounts at the time that first early repayment rolls around.
So if we moved the 2 million tonight as written in the resolution and allowed whatever's remaining to go toward early or eventual payment, approximately 1.5 million, then a future commission would have the option of saying, oh, let's.
Yes, or this commission could do that too. I mean, if you're deciding tonight, you get later down on the road and we have a windfall of cash and something else changes, yeah, so that's correct. You could do that. Myself would be a little uncomfortable making a decision on early repayment yet. It's not an issue until 2025 for us anyway. But I would certainly think that would be the intention, as Mr. Svada said, of everybody to at least pay, a portion of that early if we have the ability to. But again, not knowing what the future brings, that's just my personal, but I know other people have different ways they're viewing that.
With that understanding, I'm comfortable moving the 2 million tonight, knowing that the remainder of the construction costs at the end of September would be applied to the bond, and then giving ourselves the flexibility to see what happens in 2024. And I don't know if that speaks to the fidelity of the discussion that you were talking about, Commissioner Villanueva, but that certainly allows us to make a commitment to pay back some of those public dollars. They're earmarked and they will go back, and then to see better where we are in 2 years with the potential to possibly pay back even more.
If we move the money into, this $2 million, if we what are the, can it only be used for the pool? Or can it be, can future commissions, this commission, whatever commission, can they get into that money for other entities?
You take that one, Al.
Again, you're, by putting it in the way the resolution is worded, they'd only be able to use it for HVAC, the Youth and Family Aquatic Center, the maintenance, operations, or capital. Again, what I'd caution you is that any future commission could pass another resolution that changes the wording and says, no, 2 years from now, the next commission decides we're going to put this towards a new softball stadium. And if 5 or more vote for it on a resolution, that changes it.
But if we leave money in the account, that can't happen.
If you leave it in the construction fund, they can't. All they can do with it then is pay down debt service.
And I think that's an important, an important fact. And that's kind of why I'm looking at the proposal of let's half this. Let's take half of it and do what we're proposing, which is to move this into a different fund at 1.75, and then have the other 1.75, let's say, stay. And then that is allocated and it is locked in towards the pool, right? So it's a way for us to be sharing this, this windfall, basically, that we've had with, with moving forward with the community. I think that's what we're all here for, is trying to do what we think is right for the community. And I think it would just be it'd be a slight reduction in what we're proposing here this evening. But I think it would be, I think we would have legs to stand on to say we're trying to do the best that we can with this really good situation. So that would be my proposal, is to do the 1.75 and share the share this good thing with everyone.
And that's why I agree. I think it's important that money, because a future commission could say, you know what, we're not cool with what you guys did. We're going to change it completely and put it towards whatever it is, the project that day. I think it's important, again, that with what we told people that we were going to do, that we live up to what we said we would do. But I also see, again, that's why I'm saying that I'm willing to compromise, and maybe that's still wrong, very possibly could be, and I will admit that. But I think it's a reasonable compromise to keep some money in a fund for maintenance and everything else we're talking about, but also to secure funding for paying down the debt service without having things being able to be changed. So that's where I'm at. So I don't disagree. I think even halving it would be, I think, agreeable.
I think we agree in principle. I think it's just the devil's in the details here. So how do we want to do this?
I would propose that we,
You can't propose, we already have a motion on the floor.
pardon me, all right.
So we got to take this one step at a time. We already have a motion and a second that it's $2 million. So.
Maybe I should quick share a little anecdote here, not nearly at the level of the county fair anecdote that we heard earlier tonight, but it goes like this. So our friends at the Yankton County Commission, for years, they had a committed reserve fund for the replacement of Fleegs Bridge. and it was just under $1 million. And as part of our shared road experience that we had with the county on West City Limits Road, we had to come to an agreement with them that they had to pay their fair share to fix this road. And what we ended up getting from the county was just under $1 million, and it ended up coming out of a committed reserve fund for the replacement of Fleegs Bridge. Essentially, it was we'll just change this, and we'll give the city their $1 million, and in that, they got to, wipe their hands of West City Limits Road. It's a road that the city now owns. It's ours, basically. But I just throw that out there as just a fun anecdote, so we're all on the same page as to what a committed reserve fund can actually mean. Hopefully, future city commissions, would follow through on any resolution that we might pass here tonight, but just a fun example to have in mind.
So can I amend a motion?
By motion.
By motion.
By motion, you can make a motion to amend, which have to be seconded and then voted on.
Okay, then I move that we amend the motion, if I can get a second.
You're going to have to state what your amendment is and not just that you're amending it, Ben.
Jeez, I'm sorry. So I move that we amend the motion to move 1.75 million instead of 2 million into the, somebody help me with the verbiage.
Operation, maintenance, and capital reserve fund for the Youth or Family Aquatic Center?
Thank you. That is exactly what I was going to say.
That was about 5 less words than I was going to offer up from my paragraph over here. Did you get that, Al? Yep. All 12 words? Good. So we have an amendment to move 1.75 million to the HFAC Maintenance, Operations, and Capital Expenditures Reserve. Is there a second?
I do have a question real quick. So does that mean that then 1.75 million will then be earmarked? Is that what we're?
No, that means
No.
anything else that's left, which I don't know it's going to be,
Well, right, whatever that is.
will be in the construction reserve fund for the decision to be made either at a future commission meeting or in 2025 if you're paying off early. But that remaining amount will be in that construction account, will have to go towards paying off the bond.
Okay. I'll second that.
All right, we have a motion and a second on the amendment of moving $1.75 million to the reserve. We will vote on the amendment first, but is there any discussion on the amendment from the City Commission?
Just so we're all on the same page, then that will leave less than 2 million in the construction account.
Yes.
Yeah, depending upon what the balance is. We don't know the balance, so.
Best case, yes.
Yes. There's just still only 3.5 million. It doesn't matter how you cut it, or you can only cut it.
So our estimated ending balance at the end of this year without any additional expenditures that Amy's talked about is 3.7 million. And that's with then 2 million is what's proposed in the budget for transfer. The other thing I was going to mention is, this would be up to bond council to clarify, but I don't think we'll shorten the term of the loan. The certificate of participation will just lessen the annual levy.
That's going to take another call. We did have a call today, and bond counsel pointed me to the verbiage, but this question hadn't come up. But as I read through this, Toby, when he did this, designed it with a lot of flexibility on our part. And so I'll quote exactly how it reads. 8.1A, the option to prepay in whole or in part the lease. A, the city shall have the option to prepay the unpaid principal balance plus accrued interest in whole but not in part except as provided in 8.1B on each interest payment date on or after December 15th of 2025. So that in technical verbiage, to simplify that, it just basically says we still don't get to decide anything on prepaying until December 1st of December 15th of 2025. Part B of that says, commencing on the December 15th, 2025 interest payment date, partial prepayment of the principal balance is allowed once a year on any interest payment date in minimum principal amounts of $300,000. In the event of a partial prepayment of the principal balance under this section 8.1B, the principal balance and interest due hereon will be re-amortized, and the city will provide a new amortization schedule for the lessor's approval to be attached thereto. Again, as I look at that, I think what Toby was trying to do there is give us two different options. One, we can not only lessen the annual amount, or we can shorten it. It's kind of up to us. All the restriction is that it has to be in increments of 300,000. So if we have 1,830,000, 1,800,000 could go to that. The other 30 has to go just to a prepayment. So I think, but I need to confirm that. I don't want to sit in front of you and say that that's how I determine it when I'm not the bond counsel. But I think that's what he's trying to say there. So I can confirm that with a call tomorrow and email you that. But again, I think we have the flexibility of two different things and/or a combination there of both shortening the term of and/or lessening the annual amount.
And it's increments of at least, not in 300,000, at least 300,000.
At least 300,000, and in incremental amounts of 300,000, I think, is what they're saying by that. That clear as mud to everybody?
No, I'm not sure. So you're saying either we can choose 300,000, we can choose 600,000, 900,000?
Correct. It has to be in increments of 300,000.
I didn't hear it that way.
Yeah, I'm not sure that's how I heard it, but it's very clear it's got to be at least 300 in order to prepay.
In minimum principal amounts of 300,000. So again,
So we could do 400,000. We could do 1.5 million.
you can't, other than you can use that extra 100,000 to lessen a year's annual levy to the citizens. To the bonds, it has to be in increments of 300,000, I think is, but again, I'll verify that with a phone call tomorrow, so. But as I read that, it says in principal amounts of 300,000. So again, it's, I think you could, if there's 1,840,000, you could reduce it by the 180,000, the other 40,000, all you can do is lessen the levy to the citizens for 1 year. You know, we could, and you always have that option. The 884,000 that you've approved, you've got the ability any year to lessen that. You just don't have the ability to increase it without another opt-out. You can always levy less than what you've been approved for. And that's an annual. You know, we do that, that's part of your budget ordinance that we submit to the county, is we'll give them the annual levy we want for the pool.
And as we discussed previously, my recommendation would be that we would pay down the annual payments so that the levy covered the annual debt service at a minimum, and that was the $537,000 number that we roughly calculated to pay down the principal balance so that the annual opt-out levy amount would cover the debt service for the entire term.
And again, I did some amortization schedules, come up with a lot of different alternatives. Basically, as soon as we pay off 600,000, we're automatically under the annual levy. At 600, if we prepay 600,000, and again, we can't do that until 2025, but if we prepay just 600,000, the annual debt service is less than the 884,000. It's 881,000. I can just give you some scenarios. If we prepay by 900,000, the annual debt service is 851,000. Again, this is not shortening terms. I think we have that ability. If we just applied it to the annual amount, we're automatically passing that on to the citizens then. If we prepaid $1,200,000, our annual payment is $829,000. Again, we have the ability to levy up to 884, but we would take it down to 829. If we prepay $1,500,000, and technically we're somewheres in that $1,500,000 to $1,800,000, and I didn't do a $1,800,000 one, but at $1,500,000, our annual payment is now $802,000. Where we're levying 884, we'd be able to take 10% off of that. That's not shortening at all. But again, I think we have the ability to shorten too. So I think, I'm guessing that by the verbiage, we have the ability to both shorten the annual and shorten the terms to get it more to 884,000 every year, or whatever we shorten it by.
So then, Al, if we buy into the increment argument, if there are commissioners here who at the bare minimum want to at least put 2 million towards this this principal amount, essentially, this is our way of matching what community members came together and helped raise. So if we want to do at least 2 million, we have to do 2.1 million. Is that right?
Again, I think you have the combination there. You could do 1.8 million.
But if our desire is we want to do, at the bare minimum, the 2 million that we believe was committed as part of the project, then we have to do 2.1 million in order to be in alignment with the bond documents.
That's how I read it, but I'll confirm that tomorrow too.
Any other commission discussion? Anybody in the public? Commission, before you, you have an amendment. That was a motion and a second to put 1.75 million to the reserve for the Huther Family Aquatic Center for maintenance, operations, and capital expenditures. Roll call, Al.
And again, you're voting on the amendment now.
Mm-hmm.
Villanueva.
Aye.
Benson.
Aye.
Brunick.
Aye.
Johnson.
Aye.
Maibaum.
No.
Minor.
Aye.
Schramm.
Aye.
Weber.
Aye.
Mayor Moser.
Aye. Amendment passes. You have before you a motion. Correct, Ross?
Yes.
All right. Any discussion on the motion?
Confirm what this is.
This is the amended motion where half of the projected amount, or 1.75 specifically, was set aside as reserve for future expenses and repairs.
And the only thing I'll throw out here to confuse you a little bit more is, again, keep in mind that just because you're putting this in a restricted fund, you still have flexibility to take some of that out and pay down the debt service also. So just so you're aware of that. All you're really doing is not leaving it in the construction fund, which as of September 27th has to go to debt service. Make that clear as mud to everybody?
Commission, you have before you a motion that was amended to move 1.75 million to a restricted fund for the Youth or Family Aquatic Center for maintenance operations and capital expenditures. Any further discussion? Anybody in the public? Roll call.
Benson.
Aye.
Brunig.
Aye.
Johnson.
Aye.
Mybom.
No.
Minor.
Aye.
Schramm.
Aye.
Weber.
Aye.
Villanueva.
Aye.
Mayor Mosher.
Aye, motion carries. Moving on to other business on the agenda, there is none in front of the commission tonight, so with that, I would ask for a motion to adjourn the meeting of August 8th.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. And anybody abstaining? Meeting adjourned.
We're not going away? We're not rumbling. Is it still right? I don't know.
You still have some flexibility.